This is the BULLS ICONIC EVO TR2 Speed. It's one of my favorite bikes in their entire lineup, and they have a lot of bikes. This is a class 3, so speed pedelec, 28 mile per hour, full suspension, kind of a SUV sport utility electric bike that comes with integrated lights, fenders, a rear rack. This is kind of your do anything bike. And at $62.99, I mean, you're paying a little bit for this, but I feel like BULLS actually has a decent compromise between price and components. For about $1,000 less, at $51.99, you get a hardtail speed pedelec from BULLS. I'm covering this one as well. This is the ICONIC EVO 2 Speed, so it just doesn't have that like TR that's you know, trail ready maybe with full suspension. Both of these have the same tires. Sort of a hybrid tire, you know. These are decent knobs. I've actually been able to climb that hill, and I've had decent traction on these wood chips, but you do slide out a little bit. You might think about swapping these out if you're actually going to do trail riding, and at the same time you want to be wary of these aluminum alloy fenders because the clearance isn't too much. So, you know, these are 27.5 by 2.45, a little bit wider. You get some additional air volume for cushion, but also stability and float. This is a 64-pound bike, as you see here, okay? So to make that rear swing arm and everything, there's just more material. I think this one was just about 60, so, you know, 4 pounds more for this. And they've got a very similar suspension fork, 120 millimeters of travel up here, black anodized stanchions, 34 millimeter. We've got like a lockout over here. You can sag it because it is an air fork, so a little bit lighter and more adjustable in that sense. And we've got rebound adjust at the base there, so how quickly it kind of rebounds into the original position. Boost hub spacing, 15 millimeter through axle, heavy duty, sturdy, 203 millimeter hydraulic disc brakes front and rear. That one's only got a 203 up front and a 180 in the rear. So again, little upgrades all across. I love the black rims, the black spokes, 14 gauge in the front, 13 gauge in the rear, a little sturdier for that rear rack and just the extra, you know, strength. And you've got the drivetrain and everything going on. Quick release front and rear as well. You know, it's a mid-drive, so the motor, the battery, it's all low and center on the frame. Even though it does weigh a little bit more, it feels fairly stable and comfortable. Back to the tires for a minute. CST Supero all ground L7, and these are e-bike rated, so it's e-bike approved up to 50 kilometers per hour. These class 3 speed pedelecs can go 45 kilometers per hour, and of course you can pedal faster than that, or, you know, if you're dropping a hill, but that's where the motor cuts out for legal reasons. These do have some puncture protection. They also have a reflective sidewall stripe, which is wonderful. You don't always see that with like true mountain bike tires with the big knobs. Again, this is kind of like a hybrid setup or that sport utility vehicle concept. We do have a through axle in the rear as well, gives you that extra strength, a little bit wider hub spacing, and the drivetrain is decent. 40-tooth steel chainring. This has narrow, wide teeth, so it really locks into that chain and keeps it from bouncing off. We've got a plastic guard. Aluminum might be nice, but then you add more weight. I see a lot of like mountain bikes with more of like a single guide sort of a thing that surrounds, or just sort of slots right here. So to have a guard, it might keep your pant leg from touching the chain, which is a nice feature. Again, it's plastic, but it's like, okay, that's decent. Then back here we have a 10-speed, and this is 11 to 46 tooth. You can see that really big ring. That is for your low gear, so starting, climbing, really nice to have, and it sort of offsets that larger chain ring up there. 40 teeth. I was looking at the class 1 version. It's like the ICONIC EVO 1 750 Wave. Also checking that one out on this same review trip, and that one had a 38 tooth chainring. So 40 tooth, it's larger in the front. It slows down your cadence so that you can more comfortably pedal at speed. A lot of just attention to detail on this bike, and some other nice upgrades here. We've got a slap guard that's more of a plastic heavy duty versus just a little sticker on that one, because presumably it's full suspension. Maybe you're going off-road and stuff. 120 millimeters of travel in the rear, and we do have some adjustment here as well, sort of the lockout and rebound. It's got the black anodized stanchion. Gotta love that. It's a pretty bike. Now, it only comes in one frame color, this metallic silver with the black accents, and that looks nice. It ties into some of the other hardware. You know, cables are almost always black, the brake levers and the fork and stuff. The silver is nice. It stands out a little bit more just in terms of visibility, and it sort of works with those reflective sidewalls that we saw. And coming back down to actually look at the derailleur, Shimano Dior, this one does have the clutch, so you can lock that and it just stiffens this up so your chain won't bounce around as much, might not derail as easily. But when it comes time to do some trail maintenance, or maybe you're truing your wheel or something, you can loosen it and it's easier to deal with back there. I really like this derailleur, no complaints. And I love the shifter because you've got a high lever that you can push or you can pull. And then you've got a multi-shift low lever, 1, 2, 3. So you can just drop those gears, climb a hill. Everything works really nicely. Love the locking ergonomic grips. The display panel, we'll get into that later. And interestingly, there's an adjustable angle stem with like a little bit of a rise at the bottom. So again, coming back to that sport utility vehicle concept, your body doesn't have to be super aggressive forward. You can actually, it's already up, and then you can bring that stem up as well, 0 to 60. And bring the handlebar back a little bit. This is still kind of a mountain bike handlebar. It's wider, it gives you leverage and control over the heavier, larger wheels. But it's just interesting. And it's a pretty sturdy, it's a very robust part. I don't see this thing rattling loose as easily as some of the cheaper ones that you might get. I can tell, there's extra hardware here and it's just overbuilt. At the bottom, you also have this plastic surround so that the cables route right through, and you'll see that all across the frame. The cables are really nicely hidden. They're not going to snag as easily. It's just it's a more premium product, but they are unique. You can look at these spacers here, 10mm, 5mm, and they're like rectangular instead of circular, and there are the wires. I love that they mounted the headlight up high, okay? A lot of the other bikes, the headlight is down here on the arch of the suspension, so it's unsprung, meaning it's just gonna travel and bounce around whatever the terrain is doing. It's translated directly from the wheel into that portion of the bike. Versus this light, this is sprung. It's up here with you. You're nice and cush, it's smooth. It's up higher as well, so it's more visible. Got some side windows here, so visible from the cars, maybe seeing you as you pass, as well as in front. There's a blade on the top, so it cuts the beam and directs it maybe down instead of into the eyes of oncoming traffic. I would love to see this on all of the Bulls bikes, but maybe it's a little more expensive. It does crowd the cockpit a little bit more. The rear rack is unsprung, okay? It'd be nice if it was somehow mounted to the seat tube or something, but then it gets heavy, and there's always a compromise. It's pretty decent for what it is. I don't know the exact rating. It's probably 20 kilograms, 40 pounds, maybe 50, but again, it's hard to tell. Spring latch on top, a platform for a trunk bag, panniers, a bungee loop at the bottom. It's not bad, and it has the integrated Supernova E3 light, which is decent. It could get blocked depending on how your panniers and stuff are set up, but they're really trying to put it right at the end. The only downside is it's a little exposed to getting bumped and cracked, but it's a fairly sturdy part. Again, 65mm on these fenders. I love how this rear fender interfaces with the rack in 2 places, actually 3 places here, so it's not going to rattle around as much as it might, and this is sturdier and more durable than plastic, okay? And it's not steel. I used my magnet on these. They're not steel, so they're not going to get scratched up and rust on you. Now, very thoughtfully done. This is a Limotech dropper post, so you can press this little lever and you can drop the seat, and then you use your legs as shock absorbers and throw the bike around. That's kind of an off-road thing you see a lot on mountain bikes, so I love to see that there. Selle Royal comfortable saddle with the whale tail back here. It keeps you from flying off the back of the saddle. That's something Chris mentioned earlier. I was like, look at that saddle. He said the whale tail. Yep, that's pretty cool. And yeah, decent travel, but it depends on the frame size. So 4 frame sizes, and the travel is going to be different depending on the size of the frame. That's pretty cool. Down here we got 165mm crank arms. I'm used to seeing 170s, but this raises them a little so you don't get the pedal strikes as much for off-road riding. And maybe, if you are pedaling at a high rate, your legs aren't flying quite all over the place. It's a little bit tighter. The pedals to me are like, I would probably upgrade these. These are kind of plastic with rubber grip. They're not bad, but the surface area isn't huge, and they don't have pins or anything, so it really depends. Are you someone who just has a really comfortable city bike? If you're actually going to go off-road, I would look at those pedals and consider getting some Wellgo BMX pedals or something. I mentioned the brakes up here, these Tektro 2-finger adjustable reach, so depending on the frame size, you can bring these in a little bit, make it comfortable. And then those big 203mm rotors with the Tektro Gemini pistons. Quad piston in the front, dual piston in the back. We might see Shimano hardware. This is Tektro. depends on the supply chain, but you're still gonna have those extra big rotors. Coming back to the hardtail, this one just has 203 up front, 180 in the rear. So these are the upgrades. Similar kickstand, excellent positioning. It's not going to create pedal lock or anything. It stays out of the way when you're riding. If you hear bouncing and rattling while you're riding this bike, it could be just the kickstand. There's kind of a spring in there, but these fenders have been great. Even on the hardtail, very quiet. It's very nice. And maybe as a final point, depending on your body size and how you're riding this bike, having the dropper post does raise your minimum saddle height a little bit. Okay, so you could swap this for a rigid post. You lose that functionality, but that means you could get the saddle really low if you're very petite. And I like that this top tube sloped a little bit. It actually has an inch lower standover height than this frame does with the hardtail. So pretty cool. Really nice to see these bikes back to back. It's got the nice flick bell and everything. And I want to go through like the charger and the battery and everything. So let's just go and check that out. We're back here at the van, and I just want to call out the charger here. This is the standard charger from Bosch. Really nice. Only weighs about 1.5 pounds. It's got a proprietary interface. It's really sturdy. It's compact. And it's 4 amp. A lot of electric bike chargers are 2 amp, and they just don't charge as fast when you've got a high capacity battery like the PowerTube 625. It's nice to be able to get back on the road, you know, and especially if you're using this for touring, it's all loaded up or something. It's wonderful. And I really like where they've situated the charging port and the locking cylinder on this bike. So many times I'm seeing that like low down on the frame, you know, it gets kind of dirty down here. It's exposed to more water and everything. And if you have the plug down there and these pedals cycle around, they can snag it, they can bump it around. So it's just perfect. It's up high, it's on the right side of the bike, so the bike's tipped away from you. I really want to call that out for Bulls. So you can charge the battery right on the bike like we see here, and you can also unlock the battery from here. Before we do that though, because this is a high capacity battery, I know people who they'll ride their bike and they won't necessarily charge it right away. They just kind of like leave it in their garage or whatever. And when it does come time to charge it, it's just plug it into the side. But if you're leaving the battery in a hot garage, that can damage the lithium ion cells in that battery pack over time. You're not going to get as many full charge cycles. And if it's extremely cold, your range is going to drop significantly while those cells are cold. So being able to remove it is really wonderful. Chris is here. He's got the key. This thing is key to like too, so it comes with the ABIS Plus code, and you can get like a folding lock, maybe mount that here, put it in your trunk bag, and I really appreciate that. Chris, I guess the first thing, he's got like a little switch at the bottom of this. There's a plastic cover. It's got some branding, but these they share these between a lot of the different models. But you'll notice that there isn't a lock on this cover, just the battery. So careful not to lose this. And if you're parked at a bike rack, it could be a little vulnerable. He's going to insert the key, unlock it, and it goes to that first position. It doesn't just tumble out, but you have to push that button on top, and then you can take it the rest of the way out. 7.7 pounds on this. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. He's so helpful. Like, you've got a little charge level indicator there on the battery pack. So imagine you do take that with you into the laundry room or whatever. You're charging it, you're keeping it safe. You don't have to put it onto the bike to know how full that is. And I really love that. It's got that sturdy aluminum alloy casing. And then I guess when it's time to put it back on the bike, you just line the base up. And then watch this, he's gonna have to turn the key in order to get the battery into that first position, and then all the way like clicked in. So the point I'm trying to make here is it's really a two-hand exercise, and when you're holding the battery and you're twisting the key, I kind of wish that, you know, Bosch would design it where it just clicks all the way in, but maybe this is sturdier. It's something these bikes are really high quality. Bosch does a good job, but that's the one thing where when you're mounting from the bottom, it takes a little extra time, and then you got to remember the cover. We've got the wheel swiveled to the side, so there's plenty of space to work down here. So just be intentional when you're doing this. Thanks again. Okay, so let's go over just kind of the cockpit and turn this thing on. Before we do that, this display, it's magnetic. It just clips right onto this interface. It's really nice, and it has a micro USB port at the bottom. And that's great because it actually charges your portable electronic devices, and maybe you mount your phone or something up here. You're using it for a map or something like that. They actually have the Bosch eBike Connect app that gives you lots of different features for this, including like the rides you've taken, sort of trip stats and stuff, a map where you can type in a destination and it helps you get there. You can learn a little bit about your bike, like, okay, what's the status, what version and stuff. I think with this app, you still might have to go into the dealer if you want to do a software upgrade. And if you want to do Strava or Commute or something, you have to do that separately. Bosch has a newer app that has some of those features integrated, but that's part of the Bosch Smart System, and this is sort of the 4th generation. So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, you got the highest capacity battery, the same high quality motor, and all the displays and stuff are pretty equivalent. I don't want to forget to talk a little bit about that motor again. I mean, this thing, it's a magnesium casing, so it's about 6.4 pounds. It's pretty light compared to the older ones. It gives you over 120 RPM pedal support, meaning you can go to that lowest gear and spin, and the motor doesn't fade out as quickly or as easily as some of the other cheaper ones. And it's measuring your rear wheel speed, pedal cadence, and pedal torque over 1,000 times per second with shift detection. And the magnet here for the rear wheel speed, it's right here, kind of on like the hub or near the disc brake rotor, and it's much more protected than the old spoke magnets, and you had a little sensor plastic thing. They could get bumped out of position, get dirty. So as always, the Bosch drive systems are excellent, and they're a little bit smarter than some of the others that I see out there. They also have a really good warranty. It's like 2-year comprehensive on this, and that's kind of the Bosch thing. You know, all the Bosch bikes do that. They have a big network of dealers, and some of them are Bosch certified, so they really know their stuff. So coming back to the display here, we've got a power button, comes to life, kiosk, reset successful. Chris has been working on this thing, getting us to the latest firmware. Over here on the left, we got a button pad, plus and minus, and that'll walk us through the different levels of assist, and this changes color. So in the lowest level, Eco, it's green, and then it goes to blue, Tour, purple, Sport, and red, Turbo. We got a battery percentage at the top. I love that. It's much more precise than just like 5 bars. And then the colored kind of a circular wave thing here, that actually, it goes up and down depending on how hard you're working and how hard the motor's working. So this is a fun readout, but there are several others. With these left and right arrows, we can see them. There's clock, there's range. Range is dynamic, so if I go to a lower assist level, my range will get significantly higher. 32 miles, maybe take it all the way down to Eco, 75 miles. And this is based on like me just messing around, climbing a lot. So if I wasn't working the bike so hard, this would dynamically change. Maybe I'd get better range. Trip distance, trip time, my power as a rider, my pedal cadence, and heart rate. So that's the other big thing for the app. This actually syncs to Bluetooth for your smartphone, and then you can get some feedback about kind of your health, your heart health on this bike.
Yep.
It's a really cool feature. So yeah, everything's reachable. For me, the highlight is that you can plug in the micro USB, and really, I mean, this display and everything is very good. Walk mode over here, that might come in handy for a bike that's 64 pounds that you're taking off-road and you're like, I don't know, that's a little steep, but you don't want to push your bike. You got the walk mode going on. So with that said, maybe I'll hop on this bike and do a little ride. Lots of fun. I like this. This is great. Having looked at a bunch of hardtails today, it is fun to get out on the full suspension if you're really going off-road. I'm in turbo. Just going to show you how that motor responds. It's very natural and dynamic, so you push harder, you get power like instantly. Nice. Oh boy, nice one. Well guys, that's the BULLS ICONIC EVO TR2 Speed. For the full written review on this, check out ElectricBikeReview.com. Measured all the stats by hand with Chris's help. I've also got a comparison tool, so you can, it's like, $1,000, which one do I want? whole bunch of other bikes on the site, and there's some comments in addition to YouTube, but also I've got some forums so you can see what people really think if they own the bike. Maybe they've got some accessories that work really well or some tips on the best settings and stuff. This is just a free review. I appreciate the help from Bulls. They were helping me with the hotel, and Chris is out here, you know, working with me. I appreciate it, but I'm trying to be objective and just be thorough on this. I love you guys. Ride safe. We'll see you next time.